No comparison whatsoever. Eric Eggers joins us, Vice President of Government Accountability Institute. Welcome back, Eric. And Ben Weingarten, Senior Contributor at The Federalist. Welcome, gentlemen. Quite frankly, very few people have been all over this Robert Hur report like the three of us. It's actually very disappointing to me, Ben, how conservative media are kind of blowing it off because the New York Times isn't making a big deal about it, and they're just focused on what they see as below-the-belt comments. I think this thing is a treasure trove of facts that indicate Joe Biden's corruption, Ben.
You're right, and in some ways, this notion of, well, the gratuitous comments about the fact that the president's senile in some ways serve to his benefit because they overshadow the fact that in painstaking detail, the report shows that this lifelong swamp creature was totally and completely reckless and cavalier with the most sensitive, highly classified information for years, for many years. And of course, we're talking about hundreds of pages of classified materials in certain instances concerning everything from Afghanistan to Ukraine to China, Iraq, and beyond. And these were documents from not just his time as vice president, but also as a U.S. senator. And of course, there's a huge distinction between what a vice president and a U.S. senator can have access to and then take home with them, including post office, and what a president has the ability to have custody over. So it's a massive, massive story. There's also, let's note, the destruction of the tapes, the audio recordings themselves, by the author in question. He gets off scot-free as well. So there's egg on the DOJ's face here as well, that their whole argument is, well, we're going to prove to you all of the illegal things that the president engaged in, but we're going to let him go because of senility, because a jury won't buy it. That is simply bunk in my view, and it points to the glaring double standard at the core of these document scandals.
Well, they were able to recover that digital audio file, which that is the thing that I'm anxious to hear, not the transcript, that thing. And I actually think Hur did a very good report, and I'm okay with his recommendations. But, Eric, anything you care to add? And what about the big, dumb, lazy media? There is so much in here, the dominant media, and they're blowing it off. And it's back to, oh, Trump said something outrageous, and Joe Biden said something about that, and Nikki Haley. It's all the trivial, day-to-day horse race stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned the New York Times. I read an op-ed in which the New York Times reminded us that there's a difference between forgetting with a lowercase f and forgetting with a capital F. And unfortunately, I think Joe Biden gets an F all around, whatever font you want to use, in terms of like guarding national secrets and also just being an upstanding president. I think if there's a common link, Greg, between this story and what we've spoken about a lot of times, which is the Hunter Biden scandal, it's that Joe Biden and the Bidens are essentially selling access to the White House. To me, that's one of the big takeaways from this. So he had classified information. What was he doing with it? He was giving it to his ghostwriter. Those memoirs of Joe Biden, that book wasn't given away for free. So essentially, Joe Biden was leveraging classified information on behalf of something that would make his family money. And unfortunately, that's consistent with what the Bidens have done. Tony Bobolinsky spoke at the Capitol today about essentially how the Bidens have done that numerous times over. But you're right, he was sloppy. And so if you combine the fact that we now know that numerous foreign threats were attempting to essentially bribe the Bidens to gain access to our intelligence, we now know that Joe Biden is willing to give away access to our intelligence, to give away access to classified information, if it means the Bidens are going to make money off of it. That's what he was doing with his ghostwriter. That's what the Biden family has done for years.
It is amazing to watch you say all that stuff, and you look just like Hunter Biden. I've always thought that about you, Mr. Eggers. There is a strong resemblance. You are better and cleaner looking. All right, Tony Bobolinsky. Here he is from, actually, this is all the way back in 2020, just before the big debate. Take a look.
I was introduced to Joe Biden by Jim Biden and Hunter Biden. At my approximately hour-long meeting with Joe that night, we discussed the Biden's history, the Biden's family business plans with the Chinese, with which he was plainly familiar, at least at a high level. On numerous occasions, it was made clear to me that Joe Biden's involvement was not to be mentioned in writing, but only face-to-face.
He made that case publicly. I know he was interviewed, I think, by the FBI once, and he went on the Tucker Carlson show. He's back in front of Comer, and I'm hearing things, familiar things from the Oversight Committee. Ben, what does this mean that he's telling his story again today? I like Bobulinski. I think he's got the goods on the Bidens, but he's been around now for a long time, and his story has not really moved the needle, or has it?
Well, what's troubling about the whole scandal is how much has been out there for years about the Biden family's influence peddling. And I think the purpose of this testimony was to sort of tie a bow on what all of the sympathetic Biden world figures have testified about the monetization of the Biden family name and Joe Biden's office. I thought his introductory remarks were very compelling, where he's talking about the fact, point blank, the Bidens sold out the country to our adversaries, including communist China. Joe Biden knew about it. He also raises the fact that there should be not only FARA charges potentially brought, but also bribery charges as well. And apparently, during the hearing, as is customary now, Democrats harassed the witness. One other thing that Bobulinski said is that the DOJ and FBI were totally unconcerned with, uninterested in what he had to say for all these years. That's another part of the impeachment inquiry, is the DOJ and FBI obstructing an investigation into Hunter and Joe Biden. So we'll see if ultimately there are any new revelations, but I think this is kind of an exclamation point on the impeachment inquiry.
Finally, real quick, Eric, final thoughts. The whole system has kind of rallied around to destroy Trump and to support and buttress Joe Biden. It hasn't worked, and I sense that the whole kind of effort is crumbling. And they are, maybe not right now, but it's in the process. The dam, it's leaking. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. There's a reason we hear whispers about Gavin Newsom, who was featured prominently during the Super Bowl with Frank Luntz. There's a reason you hear whispers about J.B. Pritzker. I think that they're looking for any excuse, whether it's Joe Biden's senility or his corruption, which I think Tony Bobulinski, to Ben's point, helped elucidate in greater detail today. We now know, because of what Tony Bobulinski said, think about this, that it's national security threats to the United States. People who have been accused of bribery elsewhere were the ones trying to worm their way into the Biden orbit. They're trying to essentially gather intelligence on the United States government, and Joe Biden was a complicit partner in it. So whether that's a reason, and there's been crosstabs and polls that show that the American people are willing to vote against Joe Biden if they think he personally profited off of that business, Tony Bobulinski said today that he did. So I think that there's a lot of compelling evidence to want to maybe make a move from Joe Biden. Maybe this helps move the needle in that direction.
Everybody should check out the Drill Down podcast of Eric Eggers. He does it with Peter Schweizer. Sorry about the comparison to Hunter.
Well, I just like to say that we've been convicted of the same number of felonies, Greg, and that's important.
Okay, call the cops. Only kidding. Wait, what do you mean by that? Oh, 0, right?
Right.
0. Got it. And Ben Weingarten. Took me a moment. Thank you, sir, very much. Check him out at The Federalist and also Real Clear Investigations, editor-at-large. We'll be right back.